Вітаю! Починаємо брифінг, присвячений...
Greetings. Our briefing is dedicated to exposing fakes and propaganda of the aggressor state. During the last hours, Russia is trying to sow disbelief and complete disorientation in the information space regarding the reasons for the missile attack on the territory of Poland, using a tactic known throughout the world as a propagandist. If you cannot impose your version, make the world believe that there is no possibility of establishing the truth in the incident which happened. We saw a similar approach in 2014, after the downing of the Malaysian Boeing, when 298 people died. Then the information space was filled with various fake versions that this Boeing was allegedly accompanied by Ukrainian fighter jets. For this, a version about the Spanish instructor Carlos, who did not exist in nature, was invented. And then only a few years later it was established that he received about $50,000 for his lies. At the same time, this did not prevent President Putin from referring to non-existent instructor in an interview with the American director Oliver Stone. And this version even got into the book published by Stone, based on the results of his conversation with Putin. Moreover, at that time, there was a lie circulating in the information space about a plane into which the corpses of passengers had already been loaded in advance. In the same way, in the case of an attack on the territory of Poland, Russia is filling the information space with various versions in order to permanently destroy the belief in the establishment of the truth. So, if you read Russian propagandists, you can see a variety of different versions. For example, on a specially created channel for the spread of fake telegrams called Fighting Fakes, the Russian state throws in the version that the explosion took place during the arrival of a tractor at 4 p.m. at a transfer scale, where this tractor entered and suddenly exploded, without any explanation why this happened. Throwing in the version about overloading, Russia is spreading delusion about the apparently domestic nature of this incident. Also, for example, Russian propagandists such as Pegov are spreading the version that it doesn't matter what origins this missile was. Maybe it is really Russian, but it is important that Russia is not involved in this. This is his version. Personally, I would not argue with the origin of rockets. Indeed, you never know who they could take in the current situation. Maybe they are really Russian, but let's say captured, and some Ukrainian radicals decided to launch them. Another version is spread by Russian propaganda so that no one will ever believe in establishing the truth in this incident. It is distributed by Margarita Simonyan, head of Russia Today. She says that look at how weakly protected NATO countries are, and thus nothing prevents Russia from striking these countries with another blow. I quote, "NATO countries are so badly protected that they can be accidentally thrashed by anyone with anything, and all of NATO will not even know who thrashed them, with what and why." This mode of behavior is typical for the propaganda of authoritarian regimes. That is, to sow disbelief of the entire world community that the truth will be formed, because this truth is not beneficial to the aggressor state. After a massive missile attack on the territory of Ukraine, Russian propaganda also enjoys the suffering of the Ukrainian people. At the same time, Russian propagandists do not hide that the aim of the strike is precisely to terrorize the local civilian population in order for this population to force the Ukrainian political leadership to make concessions to Putin's ultimatums. As the well-known Russian propagandist Prilepin writes about, for example, this shelling that is now taking place is an attempt to somehow persuade the authorities in Kiev to negotiate. It is as if Russia is apologizing, embarrassed of itself, saying, "Please sit down with us at the negotiation table. You will restore everything tomorrow anyway." Thus publishing his message on Russian state propaganda resources, controlled by the official Russian authorities, conveys the message: the goal is terror. Another representative of Russian propaganda, correspondent Rudenko of Russian State TV, for example, shares the same opinion. Moscow has repeatedly made it clear to Kyiv that the door to real solution to the conflict is open. But the crazy people in power in Ukraine believed in themselves and kindness and took them for weakness. The response to stupidity was harsh and timely. In other words, Russian state journalists emphasize the target is not military facilities but rather civilian infrastructure, that is, terror in its purest form by a terrorist state. In order to discredit the Ukrainian authorities, Russian state propaganda also spreads the throw-in that allegedly Ukraine was planning a terrorist attack on the territory of the Kursk nuclear power plant. This is reported by a Russian military expert Podubny in his Telegram channel. Saboteur near Belgorod, detained the day before, a member of the sabotage group of the Kyiv regime, talks about their goals and targets, the purpose for which they went, and there was to blow a nuclear power plant. This is reported repeatedly by Russian propagandists, referring to an alleged Ukrainian saboteur. The purpose of this throw-in is also clear, since Russia has been terrorizing the entire world for more than 6 months by capturing the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The terrorist state is trying to shift the responsibility and spread its toxic status to Ukraine. That is, Ukraine was going to blow up the Kursk nuclear power plant. This is complete nonsense. Ukraine has nothing to do with these plans, and only one country is a terrorist: Russia. Realizing that Russia is losing the information war, it tries to involve religious figures in order to convince the population of its intentions. Thus, an interview with Metropolitan Tikhon was broadcasted on the Russian state channel Rossiya 24, where he spreads the nonsense that Putin's special operation, which he began, was allegedly because of vital testimony to this special operation. It seems that what is happening in relation to the Russian language in Ukraine is Nazism, and that Russia is waging a war against Ukraine, supposedly in opposition to LGBT people, and the destruction of the institution of the family. Of course, the audience for this nonsense is Russia itself, because no one else can believe it. But it is interesting that the attempt to spread this nonsense is broadcast on various channels. In particular, a representative of the occupation authorities in the Zaporizhzhia region, allegedly a representative of the local so-called fake Ministry of Culture, reports that while this territory was under Ukrainian control, LGBT propaganda and Nazism were also spread there. The use of these words and images from the mouths of Russian state representatives is proof that they are looking for more and more fakes to justify their aggression against Ukraine. And everyone who has lived and lives on the territory of Ukraine understands that everything said is a complete lie. The traditional urging, do not believe Russian propaganda, trust Ukrainian media, Teleson, Ukrainian military and political leadership. See you.
Керівництву. До зустрічі.